Have you ever seen those giant white letters standing proudly on a hill above Los Angeles and wondered what story they could tell? At first glance, the Hollywood sign looks like a simple landmark, a perfect background for photos and movies. But behind those tall letters lies a history filled with ambition, illusion, tragedy, reinvention, and the unstoppable power of dreams. What if I told you that this global symbol of fame and cinema was never meant to represent the film industry at all? To understand the beginning, we must travel back to the early 1920s. Los Angeles was not yet the enormous, glamorous metropolis we imagine today. It was growing rapidly, expanding outward into valleys and hills, attracting newcomers who were searching for opportunity, sunshine, and a better life. Southern California promised health, space, and prosperity. Developers were buying large areas of land and turning them into residential communities. One such project was called Hollywoodland, a new housing development located in the hills above the city. In 1923, the investors behind this project wanted a bold marketing strategy. They needed something dramatic, something impossible to ignore. Instead of a small billboard near the road, they decided to build a gigantic sign directly into the hillside. The structure would stretch across the slope of Mount Lee, overlooking the city below. The word chosen for the sign was not Hollywood as we know it today, but Hollywoodland, the full name of the housing development. The letters were enormous. Each one stood approximately 45 feet tall, about the height of a 6-story building. Imagine standing beneath one of those letters. It would tower above you like a white metal giant. The total length of the sign extended nearly 400 feet across the hillside. Construction required workers to transport materials up rough terrain, building wooden frames and covering them with sheet metal. It was not an easy project. The hills were steep, the ground uneven, and the weather sometimes harsh. But the developers wanted more than just size. They wanted spectacle. Around 4,000 electric light bulbs were attached to the letters. At night, these bulbs illuminated the sign in a special sequence. First Holly would light up, then wood, and finally land. After that, the entire word would glow together against the dark California sky. For residents of Los Angeles in the 1920s, this must have looked magical. Electric lighting was still relatively modern and exciting. The shining letters symbolized progress, ambition, and a bright future. It is important to remember that at this time, the film industry was still developing. Movie studios such as Paramount and Warner Brothers were establishing themselves nearby, attracted by the region's consistent sunshine and varied landscapes. Films could be shot year-round outdoors without worrying about freezing winters. Slowly, the name Hollywood began to be associated with cinema. Actors, directors, and writers moved west, hoping to build careers in this new industry. Yet the famous sign above the hills had nothing to do with filmmaking, at least not at first. It was simply a creative advertisement designed to sell houses to wealthy buyers who wanted to live in an exclusive neighborhood. The plan was temporary. The sign was expected to stand for only about 18 months. It was never designed to survive for decades. Its wooden supports were not built for permanence. Maintenance was minimal, but something unexpected happened. The word Hollywoodland began to take on a life of its own. As the movie industry expanded during the 1920s and 1930s, the public started to associate the hillside letters with the glamour of cinema. The sign, originally created for real estate, became a backdrop for dreams. At the same time, however, the physical structure began to suffer. Strong winds, heavy rains, and the intense California sun slowly weakened the materials. The paint faded, wooden beams cracked, light bulbs burned out. Keeping the sign illuminated required constant effort, and over time, that effort decreased. The Great Depression, which began in 1929, brought financial hardship across the United States. Money for maintenance became scarce. The once brilliant advertisement began to look worn and fragile. Then, in 1932, tragedy cast a dark shadow over the hillside. A young actress named Peg Entwistle, struggling to find success in Hollywood, climbed to the top of the letter H and jumped to her death. Her story shocked the public and quickly became part of Hollywood legend. The sign, which symbolized hope and ambition, was now connected to disappointment and despair. It reflected the reality that not every dream comes true. The film industry promised fame and fortune, but it could also bring rejection and heartbreak. Throughout the 1930s and 1940s, the sign continued to deteriorate. At one point, the caretaker who lived nearby accidentally crashed his car into the letter H, destroying part of it. Repairs were incomplete and temporary. Some letters leaned awkwardly. Others were partially broken. By the late 1940s, the structure looked almost abandoned. Yet even as the physical letters weakened, the symbolic meaning of the word Hollywood grew stronger. The golden age of cinema was flourishing. Black and white films filled theaters. Stars like Clark Gable, Marilyn Monroe, and Humphrey Bogart were becoming global icons. The word Hollywood no longer referred only to a district in Los Angeles. It represented the entire American film industry, a world of glamour, storytelling, and imagination. In 1949, a significant change occurred. The Hollywood Chamber of Commerce decided to remove the land portion of the sign. The real estate project was no longer relevant, and the remaining word better reflected the identity that had developed over the years. After renovations, the hillside displayed a simpler, stronger message: Hollywood. This transformation marked the true birth of the symbol we recognize today. The removal of those 4 letters may seem like a small detail, but it changed everything. The sign was no longer an advertisement. It had become an emblem. It stood for ambition, creativity, and the pursuit of success. It watched silently over movie premieres, industry scandals, artistic revolutions, and social change. Millions of people around the world began to see it as the ultimate symbol of opportunity. And yet, the story was far from over. The sign's greatest challenges, decay, vandalism, and eventual rescue, were still ahead. What began as a temporary billboard was slowly transforming into a permanent cultural icon, but survival was not guaranteed. The hills above Los Angeles held more drama than any movie set, and the next chapter would test whether this symbol of dreams could endure reality. Today, the Hollywood sign is far more than a collection of white letters on a hillside. It is one of the most recognized symbols on Earth. Millions of tourists travel to Los Angeles each year hoping to catch a glimpse of it, to take a photograph, or simply to stand beneath it and feel connected to the dream it represents. It appears in countless films, television shows, music videos, and advertisements, silently reinforcing its association with ambition and entertainment. Carefully protected and monitored, the modern structure is made of steel and maintained with precision, ensuring that it will not fade as it once did. Yet its true power is not in metal or paint, but in meaning. The sign represents hope, creativity, risk, and the courage to pursue something bigger than oneself. For some, it symbolizes fame and success. For others, it is a reminder of how fragile dreams can be. Nearly a century after it was built as a temporary advertisement, the Hollywood sign continues to stand above the city, not just as a landmark, but as a global icon of imagination and possibility. The Hollywood sign still watches over Los Angeles, quietly reminding the world that dreams can begin with nothing more than an idea and a little courage. And perhaps that is its greatest secret. Somewhere beneath those giant white letters, another story is always waiting to begin. Thank you so much for watching. Please like and subscribe if you want to see more of our exciting stories.